The tax authority audited me for irregular tax returns that had my signature, but that I never prepared. I found out when the notice arrived in my name. What I found when I started looking almost cost me my professional license. There are official notifications that arrive, and that when you read them, you understand there are two possibilities. Either there is an error, or something you believed was one way was not that way at all. The tax authority notification arrived on a Monday morning to my email registered as a certified public accountant. It was an audit requirement. It referenced tax returns for the fiscal years 2021 and 2022 of a company I did know. It was a family company I had worked with for 5 years. It referenced my signature and my professional license as the accountant responsible for those returns. The problem was that the returns the tax authority was auditing were not the ones I had prepared. They were versions someone had produced with my credentials, and I had not known until that Monday morning. My name is Daniela. I am 41 years old. I am a certified public accountant with 16 years of independent practice and a professional reputation I had built with the methodology of someone who understands that in this profession, credibility is the asset that holds everything else together. My client was a family construction materials distribution company I'm going to call Villanueva Construction because the legal process has its own pace and because their real name is part of files that have not yet fully closed. 5 years of professional relationship. 2 generations of the family involved in the operation of the business. Complete access to their accounting, their invoices, their bank records. The kind of trust that builds slowly and that when it breaks does so in a way that leaves you looking backward, asking yourself exactly when it started breaking. The audit requirement was specific. The tax authority had identified discrepancies between the income declared on the annual returns for 2 fiscal years and the movements recorded in the company's bank accounts. The returns had been filed with my electronic signature and my professional license. The returns I had prepared did not have those discrepancies because I had declared the actual income that appeared in the accounting they delivered to me. What the tax authority was seeing was a different version. A version where the declared income was significantly lower than the actual income. A version someone had produced using my credentials. A version that reduced the tax paid by an amount that when I calculated it, that morning represented approximately 800,000 pesos across 2 fiscal years. The first thing I did was call my attorney. Her name is Adriana, and she has spent 20 years in tax and fiscal law. I sent her the requirement before calling. When she answered, she had already read it. The first thing she told me was not to respond to the tax authority yet. That before any official response, we needed to understand exactly what had been filed and what the difference was from what I had prepared. That the requirement was serious but had a response deadline, and that deadline was time we needed to use well. She told me the second thing was to obtain a copy of the returns the tax authority was auditing through the tax authority portal with my own credentials, so we could compare them with what I had in my files. She told me the third thing was not to contact the company yet. I entered the tax authority portal with my credentials that same morning. I downloaded the returns the tax authority had on file under my signature for the relevant fiscal years. I compared them with the ones I had in my work files. They were not the same. The ones I had were the ones I had prepared, with actual income, with correct deductions, with precisely calculated tax. The ones the tax authority had were different in the income and tax liability sections. Someone had taken my credentials and filed modified versions of my returns after I had prepared and delivered them to the client. Or someone had prepared entirely new returns using my credentials without my knowledge. In either case, the result was the same. Irregular tax returns were circulating with my name and my license that I had not produced. The comparative analysis Adriana and I built over the next 3 days was the most meticulous work I have done in 16 years of practice. Return by return, line item by line item, difference by difference. At the end of the process, we had a 42-page document showing with precision what my return said versus what the returns the tax authority had on file said. We also had the filing history from the tax authority portal showing the exact date and time each return had been filed. Mine had always been filed within the first 10 days of the month following the period being declared. The irregular ones had been filed in all cases between 3 and 7 days after mine. Someone had waited for me to file and then filed modified versions using my same credentials, which meant that at some point my tax authority credentials had been compromised. Adriana asked me whether I remembered having shared my tax authority credentials with anyone at the company. The question generated a specific discomfort because the answer was complicated. I had not shared my credentials directly, but there had been a period 3 years ago when the tax authority system had had access problems and when the company's internal accountant, a man named Ernesto who had been with the company for 12 years, had helped me resolve a technical access problem on the portal from the company's office computer. In that process, it had been necessary to enter my credentials on that computer. I had entered them. Ernesto had been present. There had been no reason at that moment to distrust that situation. Adriana listened to that and told me we had a lead. I did not confront Ernesto or the Villanueva family directly. What we did was build the complete case before any move toward them. Adriana filed the response to the tax authority with a complete comparative file. The response documented that the irregular returns had been filed without my knowledge or authorization using credentials that had been compromised. That I had evidence from the filing history showing the sequence of my original filing followed by the irregular filing. That I was cooperating fully with the authority and that I was initiating separate legal action against those responsible. The tax authority responded within the deadline with a request for additional information that Adriana handled. The process with the tax authority lasted 4 months. At the end, the tax authority determined that I had not been responsible for the irregular returns and that the audit process was redirected toward the company as the direct taxpayer. My name was removed from the fiscal liability process. The legal process against the company ran in parallel. Adriana filed a formal complaint with the prosecutor's office for improper use of professional credentials and preparation of apocryphal fiscal documents. In the investigation process, the prosecutor's office summoned Ernesto. Ernesto, when confronted with the technical evidence from the tax authority portal access history, did not deny his participation. He declared that he had acted under instructions from one of the Villanueva family partners, that the scheme had started in fiscal year 2021 when the company's income had risen significantly and the partner had decided that declaring less was preferable to paying the corresponding tax. That they had waited for me to file my returns, had logged into the portal with my credentials that Ernesto had saved without my knowledge 3 years earlier, and had filed modified versions. 2 returns per year. 2 fiscal years. 800,000 pesos of unpaid tax. With my name on top. The legal process took 8 months. The responsible Villanueva family partner was formally charged. Ernesto reached a cooperation agreement that reduced his liability in exchange for his testimony. The company received a tax assessment for the omitted tax plus surcharges and penalties. I received a formal resolution from the disciplinary process of the IMCP, the Mexican Institute of Public Accountants, which had initiated its own investigation when the tax authority notification became public in the Institute's records, determining that my professional conduct had been correct and that the irregularities had occurred without my knowledge or participation. That IMCP resolution was the one that mattered most, not for what it said about the legal process, but because in a profession where the license and the reputation are the same thing, having that document meant that what had taken 16 years to build had not been destroyed in 4 months of audit. I ended the relationship with Villanueva Construction the day I filed the formal complaint. It was not a decision I considered for a long time. It was the logical conclusion of understanding that the person or persons who had made that decision had calculated that my name was a resource they could use to cover something they did not want to pay. That I, in their calculation, was expendable if the scheme came to light. That is not repair with an apology. That defines what that relationship was in its most honest layer. What I want you to take from this story has very practical parts for any professional who works with clients and whose credentials are relevant in digital systems. The first and most urgent: never enter your professional credentials on equipment that is not yours or that you do not completely control. The context does not matter. The apparent urgency does not matter. If you need to resolve a technical problem that requires your credentials, do it from your own equipment. If that is not possible in that moment, change your credentials immediately afterward from equipment you do control. The second, If you have clients for whom you regularly file declarations or official documents, establish a practice of periodic verification in the corresponding portal that what appears registered under your name is what you filed. Not annually, monthly. The filing history is visible and is the first line of detection for irregularities. The third, if you receive an official notification referencing documents or returns under your name that you do not recognize, do not respond directly to the authority without specialized legal representation. The response deadline exists to be used to build your defense, not to be consumed in panic. And the fourth, clients who use your credentials without your knowledge do not do so by accident. It is a deliberate decision that required access to your information, time to plan it, and the confidence that you would not discover it or that if you did the damage would already be done. That decision says something about the relationship that existed that is more important than any year of joint work. If this story impacted you, comment. Do you regularly verify that what appears registered under your name in official systems corresponds to what you filed? Like if you believe the use of another person's professional credentials without their knowledge should have more severe criminal consequences. Subscribe for more real stories. Share with someone who is an independent professional and has never thought about this specific risk. Practical tip: if you're an accountant, attorney, physician, or any professional whose credentials have value in official digital systems, activate automatic notifications on your professional portal so you receive an alert every time a document is filed under your name. In the United States, the IRS has an identity protection PIN program at irs.gov that can help protect your tax identity. That simple habit can be the difference between detecting an irregularity in time and receiving it as an audit notification.